Welcome to Rick's Europe! A little while ago, I had the pleasure to attend the UK Reform Conference, and there I met a man quite special, to say the least. I met Noel Wilcox, and to give you an idea of who he is a real troublemaker, or at least that's how probably the establishment would call him. Because imagine waking up to £150,000 in fines. No warning, no clear signs, no chance to actually defend yourself. Well, this is exactly what happened to Noel. And you know what he did? These were right away fines that he had to pay because he did something wrong in terms of the low emission zone. And what he did is he actually took this case to court and won successfully. This is an issue I think we see both in the EU and in London and in the rest of the UK, is that we have these politicians in their ivory towers that are opposing to you and I, common people, these green policies. And the question that we should ask ourselves, is it really to really improve the environment, or is it just a way to squeeze out cash out of hardworking people? Noel Wilcox is with us here today. Noel, welcome.
Hello, Scarlett. Lovely to see you again.
Lovely to see you again. Who did you upset today?
Do you know what, today I haven't managed to upset anybody today. I'm quite disappointed with myself. So yeah, I'm working on it though. Who else I can upset in the establishment?
So we're going to discuss about the Transport for London's broken system. And like I mentioned in the beginning, one day you wake up £150,000 in fines. Actually, not really with a clear or proper sign that indicate that you were even in a restricted zone. Can you please tell more about the situation? What happened?
So, sorry, just to correct you there, Scarlett, it wasn't £150,000. It was £11,500 of fines that we, as a company, had received. So I run a small scaffolding company here. Times have been very, very tough with cost of living. People just don't have that expendable income anymore. And people are genuinely struggling here in the UK, particularly working class people. Working class people feel like that they're just simply going to work to just pay everything else, whether that's your bills, Sky TV, whatever it might be, that after all of your bills are paid, that nobody has any expendable income anymore. So the scaffolding industry here has been, it has its moments when it's good, but it's been predominantly quite quiet off the back of COVID. So I'm also in the Army Reserves, and I was mobilised throughout COVID. When obviously the pandemic hit, they mobilised the army here because I think panic had set in. And I was involved with the running of the mobile testing units that we were using here in the southeast of England. And I was based in Portsmouth at the time. So when I came off mobilisation, the company secretary had got in touch with me, and she said to me, "Noel, we've received £11,500 worth of fines." And I was like, what, from HMRC? Because that's the only people that I can think of who would be fining you £11,500. And she said, "No, Transport for London." And I thought, well, I definitely haven't dodged a train fare, so it can't be from that. I definitely haven't parked on a bus lane or a red route or something like this. So I was quite startled as to what was going on. So I went round to the office. She gave me the paperwork, and there was photographs of our vehicle that had been entering something that they were calling the Low Emission Zone, which was in Hayes, which is, just for your listeners, Hayes is right near to Heathrow Airport, which is by the M4, because we had a job that was going on there. So I went over there, recce'd the route, and a recce means that I basically carried out my own observations, and I could not see anything there, Scarlett, that would indicate that there was any charge or anything. All I could see was these signs that simply said LEZ, where the majority of these signs were located. There was other signs with them as well. So I was like, well, hold on a minute. This is also signage overload. So, in my wisdom, thinking that it might carry a little bit of weight, that I've been serving my country, I contacted Transport for London. I had written to them officially and said that I was mobilised. I wasn't driving the vehicle. We were using agency drivers and temporary drivers. You know, is there any way that we could waiver these fines? Well, that was wishful thinking on my behalf. Very wishful thinking. So they wrote back to me and they said no, that they're going to carry on with their enforcement action against me. So I had a look at what were my channels available to me in terms of how I could appeal this. And by way of appeal, I could appeal to the London Tribunals, the road traffic adjudicator. So what a road traffic adjudicator is, it's a judge that is a third party judge, because you can't expect all judges out there, like county court judges, high court judges, to know all elements of law and be qualified in that area. So they're specifically qualified in road traffic law. So I also did a lot more research regarding adjudicators and the road traffic tribunals. And people were complaining that they have very, very little success rate in the tribunals. So particularly with matters like this, the congestion charge and the ULEZ and stuff like that. So I kind of thought to myself, right, I need to be very clever how I approach this. And it was by a video call at the time, because COVID was still going on. We still were on the back end of the pandemic. So the courts were not seeing anybody. So it was done via like a video call. And I knew that I had to box very clever with the adjudicator. And I laid it out simply that these signs are not compliant with the road traffic signs that I am looking at in the manual. And also I had checked the authorization of these signs. So every sign here in the UK is authorized by the Department for Transport. And I could also very clearly work out that the signs were not also authorized with the pictures of the layout. Sorry, not the pictures, the layout of and the structure and the dimensions of how that sign has to look. Because here it has to undergo quite a lot of vigorous testing to actually implement a road traffic sign that is easy to read, that it's not going to confuse drivers, that it's not going to cause accidents, that it's safe, and that sort of stuff. So I challenged it on the.
I can imagine that a lot of people that want to drive somewhere and park their car, they quickly look and they see LEZ and they don't really understand that it's for low emissions zone and that you have to pay for it. So it's very understandable that it's confusing for people.
It's exactly. So the signs that I was reading, you know, when you look at the congestion charge, it's got a C. So it's got a white C with a red background. So it would indicate to a driver that there's a charge that exists. But even by saying that it's an LEZ, a low emission zone, I said to the adjudicator as well, that vehicle, that lorry is a Euro 5 with AdBlue. So I just thought naturally that it was compliant with emissions. So after, so obviously I explained that to the adjudicator. The adjudicator, you know, he took all those points on board. But what he very interestingly did, once I'd made my points, he gave Transport for London 21 days. So he adjourned the hearing and he gave them 21 days to respond to the legal points that I had raised in the hearing. And guess what? Transport for London didn't respond. So the adjudicator found in my favour and granted the decision. But I just want to be very, very clear about this. They were very threatening, Transport for London, with £11,500. And just me being the way that I am, you know, that I come from a working class background, you know, I grew up on a council estate. I wasn't going to be bullied by anybody. And for the better, I wasn't going to be a good little boy.
It takes a lot of courage. You actually basically transformed yourself into a lawyer. You took the case to court and you one, congratulations on that. But it didn't end there. Unfortunately, like you said, they were very threatening. But I also understood that they actually ignored the ruling. So they sent bailiffs to your doorstep and threatened to seize your assets. Okay,
That's
just to make
correct.
sure, does the government think that they're above the law?
Well, absolutely. And I mean, that's proven. That's proven. You know, here, definitely in the UK, I'm not too sure of the issues and the problems that you have in Holland. But from my perspective, I was very, very disillusioned. The fact that there was a court order, you know, the adjudicator's decision was final. They'd not appealed that decision. It was, you know, so I'd got that decision in October 2021. Yeah. So it was October 2021. And it was in March of 2022 that they came after me again for the £11,500 by way of using bailiffs. And when we spoke to the bailiff company and we provided the evidence that this had already been to court, they said to us, we only take instructions from our client. So you're ignoring the law as well.
What is now actually the status of this case? Like, did you already receive your money back? Did they pay you? Because that will set the precedent for the rest of other similar cases, which I'm sure there must be thousands of them.
So I've gone through a very lengthy. So the story broke last year, which was when the ULEZ was expanded into the low emission zone. So for your listeners, the ultra low emission zone was around central London. Last year, I think it was September 2023. Yeah, September 2023. It might have been August 2023. They expanded it from central London to Greater London, which is where the low emission zone was. And they expanded it into that zone. And then I still sort of thought to myself, well, hold on a minute. They've expanded the zone into the low emission zone and they still haven't changed the signs. So they've done it knowing that the signs are not compliant with legislation. How does that work?
This is why I'm very looking forward to hear what the verdict and what how it will go eventually with this whole trial. Because if you win and you get to get the fines paid back by the Transport for London, it will set a precedent for the rest of the people as well, for every ordinary person who just wants to go to work and is willing to work hard. How likely do you think those chances are that you will actually get your money back? And with that being said, that you actually have set the precedent and that now other people will also be able to get those fines paid back and we will stop using those low emission zones.
Well, the thing is with the adjudicators with the tribunals, this is the issue. That decision is only binding between myself and that local authority. And that's the reason why they never appealed that decision. And I want to be very, very clear about that. So what they should have done is appealed that adjudicator's decision, and they have a 3-month window to appeal the adjudicator's decision. And that's by way of judicial review. So that would have been in the High Court, the administrative court. But they didn't do it because, like I say, the reason why they didn't do it was because they know that if they would have appealed that decision, I'd have gone to court and I would have won. Because I had them on the legislation and I also had them on the authorization. I mean, it's just so confusing. You know, the whole idea of road traffic signs, like a no entry sign, for instance. So a no entry sign is a standard sign that everybody understands and knows. But here in the UK, you go into different towns, different cities, and they've all got different signs for whatever low emission zone scheme that they're running. In Birmingham, where we were, they run a clean air scheme, but they call it clean air. So they've got different signs. ULEZ is different signs. It just says ULEZ in a sign. What does that mean? You know, if you were driving here, and I don't know, you were a tourist and you were driving here, you wouldn't have a clue what that means.
No.
Not a clue. So that's all it says is ULEZ. I mean, it's like, okay, what does that mean? And a zone doesn't mean that there's a charge.
Yeah, you're just supposed to know it, but how can you know it if it's not even communicated or written anywhere? But like I mentioned, in Europe, we see that there's such a hard push for these low emissions policies, and they want to make sure that we ban all petrol and diesel cars by what was it, 2050 or even earlier, 2035. And it's interesting because if you read into it and you look at the companies that are actually making these cars, they're not actually just only producing those electrical vehicles. No, they still produce petrol and diesel cars. So I think it shows that there simply isn't enough infrastructure and demand for all electric cars, and the government keeps pushing for it. But yeah, the reality is that they're actually basically putting the cart before the horse, and they are
Yeah,
completely of touch. They are completely out of touch with how people are living in an everyday life.
yeah. I mean, look, I've got no doubts whatsoever that this is just a money making scam and it's just another tax on how they can hit the working class. The working class are paying for everything here. You know, we're even providing hotel accommodation for people that enter our country illegally. So the working class here are just paying for everything all the time. They're just being fleeced. And this is what I'm very, very passionate about, Scarlett. I'm so passionate about this. I do not like bullies. That's what I swore an oath of allegiance for. I swore an oath of allegiance to my country to basically eradicate and stop bullies. But I'm seeing it with my own government. The overreach of the government is sickening, and it sickens me to my core. And that's what motivates me. That's what keeps me passionate. And that's why I want people to be inspired by what I'm doing. And there's nothing wrong with taking up a campaign and campaigning against what you believe is right and wrong. And I believe that this is wrong. And I don't like people sitting behind a desk on their keyboard making other people's lives a misery. I don't like it.
Well, Noel, we need more critical voices like you. I just want to say from the bottom of my heart, thank you for putting yourself out there and trying to help those who are maybe not in a position to actually go to court and fight, for example, the Transport of London or even a child maintenance service where you put so much time and effort into it. Like you said, maybe you're an ordinary man, but you do extraordinary things.
Thank you so much for having me on. I've really, really, really enjoyed being on.
Thank you very much, Noel. And of course, thank you at home for watching.